because my mom asks me sometimes, she's like, well, what are you going to do whenever your husband's not home and it's just you and your kids and you find one? I tell her, well, I guess me and my child are going out and about. Hello.
Hello. How's it going?
Going well. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. So we're FaceTiming and making this work due to circumstances.
Yeah. Trying to practice, social distancing?
Social distancing.
I mean, I do that every day, so
life of an introvert?
Yeah. Life hasn't changed much.
Yep.
I just can't go out to get coffee. Although I tried to make my own, cappuccino or latte today.
I saw that on Instagram.
Yeah.
It looked very pretty.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure there was not a good flavor. I kind of just chugged it anyway, so it didn't really matter. But
that is
but it was like you froth the milk with what's it called? A French press. You heat up the milk, put it in there, and froth it, and it works out for you. So it was fun.
Nice. So I kind of, taking from what we talked about, in our past episodes. Which, speaking of past episodes, really quick, just want to kind of give a shout out for those who did participate on our Instagram and commented based off of our pictures and the clues or teasers that we were giving to get you guessing on what you thought we were going to be talking about in our second episode. So if you missed that, make sure you check that out. And then also we want to address that because we are doing our social distancing and trying to do our part, we are recording this through FaceTime, and we're making sure that we can still get some content out there and ease you guys as you're at home and maybe trapped, that you can listen to some good stuff and maybe learn about the stuff that we have for you. I'm super excited about. So yeah, we hope that our audio quality doesn't take a huge hit for that. But if it does, again, guys, we just hope that you do enjoy and you push through with us as the world is pushing through, making the best out of this situation.
Yeah, hopefully nothing too bad happens while we're recording this.
Very true.
And that we do want to apologize just in case there are any hiccups while we were recording. Thank you again for being with us through this journey. Through this journey, we're definitely going to have a lot of mistakes, and hopefully this isn't one of them.
And if it is, well, we'll learn our lesson.
We'll get past it.
We shall. Speaking of... I just love how everything falls into place. Speaking of getting past things and having hiccups, the story that we're going to be bringing to you today on our topic is actually personally, to me, a very, I guess I would call it proof or evidence, or just like one of those inspiring stories of pushing through situations when even though maybe your startup isn't what you would want it to, how if you can push through the obstacles, the challenges, you can have a great outcome. So we'll definitely talk about the history, but we are talking about, Caroline, take it away. Legos. This is, honestly, I think this is one of the most, for me, like, appealing toys probably that I've ever seen. It's just one of those things, like, whether I use them, play with them, or not, just like walking past them or even going to the store. I don't know if you've gone to one of the like
I've never been.
No, okay, you have to. It's very calming, it's very soothing, just walking in there, seeing everything perfectly aligned, just together. I don't know, it's awesome. It's a very great experience. But just because of that, we dove deep, we did some history, and we're going to share it with you. So, Well, I guess we'll just jump in. The Lego Group was founded in 1932 by Ole Kirk Christensen. And I'm telling you, it's a wonderful story. The company has actually passed from father to son and is now earned, and I'm not going to say the name because I think it's like Dutch and I don't want to butcher it. But basically the person who now owns it is the grandchild of the father or of the founder. So this is one of those like family history, just it's awesome.
You know, when I was reading it, when I saw Old Kirk Christensen, I thought it was like Old Kirk Christensen. So his first name was Kirk, not Old. And I was definitely wrong.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. Kind of like that saying, or like the
yeah, like Old Man Stevens over there. You know what I mean?
Oh, that is funny.
Yeah, but that was not what it meant.
I wonder if they like made like joked with him, or if he had like a nickname, or if they used like a pun, or kind of went along with that same thought process. Like
maybe,
I don't know. That'd be cool though. I mean, it's integrated already, part of your name, so that's great. But okay, so the name Lego is an abbreviation of two Danish words, which again I'm gonna mispronounce, but it's leg got. So it's Leg as one word, and then Godt, and that basically means play well. And so they basically formed, like, they grabbed the Le and then the Go, and then that's how they formed the word Lego. So cool name, history, creative. Yeah.
But it's crazy, like, how he even got to the point where he was able to name his company Lego. Like, the history before that was basically so crazy to me. Like, all the obstacles he had to go through in order to get to this point, you know what I mean?
So what happened?
So, he began his first shop in 1960 in a Danish village.
Mm-hmm.
And in this shop, he made furniture, so, like, ladders, stools, and ironing boards.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 1924, his son set a pile of wood chips on fire and resulted in destruction of both his shop and their family home.
Oh, man.
Which is so sad. I know. I mean, I would feel so bad if I was his son. I'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I was just playing a game.
Right.
And then destroyed everything.
Dang. And that's honestly devastating, especially whenever you have, or, I'm assuming this was his, like, trade or his...
Yeah.
I mean, business, really. And... I think we've seen cases, and so many cases in history where, we make the assumption, and then, you build it back up. But really, honestly, like, if you're in that position, just like putting yourself in his shoes, it takes a lot. It really does. It takes a lot to get past that moment of, I guess, deception and disappointment or just, I don't know. I guess you have to grieve it, and then put yourself in that position where you're like, okay, well, what's next?
Yeah, I'm finally ready to think about what to do next.
Exactly. So then what did happen next?
He finally was able to start building, and he started building a bigger shop. But then the American stock market crashed.
Ugh.
And then his wife died in 1932. And because times were so hard for him, he just decided to create kids' toys in that time because he wasn't making enough money. And so he's like, I need to support my family. It's just me. And so... he actually went bankrupt, and his siblings were like, look, we'll bail you out. All you have to do is just stop making these wood toys. Do something different. And they were like, if you stop making it, we'll bail you out, and it's no problem. And he was like, no, that's not what I'm doing. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm going to make toys that I want. I'm going to build all this wood, like, toys and stuff. And so that's where he started to rename the company Leg God in order to turn it into Lego.
That's awesome. Wow.
He was determined.
Yeah, see, that's why and that's what I'm talking about. Like, that to me, I don't know. That just goes back to, like, and I'm trying to make it applicable to us nowadays because, I mean, it's those kind of stories that should be inspiring because oftentimes, people, I mean, it happens. It probably happens to everybody, at some point in your life you fail at something, but you have to be so passionate about what you do that it doesn't matter, like, you know, even in this case, his family, his own family, right?
Yeah.
Like, dude, you have to stop doing what you're doing. But you have to be so passionate about it and believing in yourself and telling yourself, you know what, no matter, like, if the world turns against me, if I'm passionate enough about this, I'm gonna push forward no matter what, you know? And so I've seen, and I've seen so many people in my life as well who have been an inspiration. I've seen them, you know, that they go to school, they go back to school, and they're just, like, advancing in their degree, or they're moving up in their career, and sometimes they'll lose everything, and it's amazing and inspiring to see that, you know, success doesn't always come, you know, in the snap of a finger, or just because, you know, you have it handed to you.
It's not always a straight shot up. There's going to be ups and downs definitely throughout that journey.
And what's going to get you through is knowing that you believe in, you strongly believe in what you're doing, and that you love it so much that even if you're not making money off of it, or fame, or whatever it is, you have what you were holding on to, which was your idea, or, you know, whatever your product or your business, or, you know, whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah. Well, what sucks for him is that then in 1942, there was another fire.
Yeah, I read that.
And it burned his factory down again.
It burned again, yep. So the production of the wooden toys was no more.
Yeah. And then, so after World War II, many of the supplies that he was using to make his usual, like, toys and, like, furniture and stuff wasn't actually available anymore. And so they had to find, like, cheaper alternatives for, like, everything to be used.
Gotta scramble around to find, to find everything that's going on. And I believe that was the year 1960, right? Is what I have on my notes, was when the wooden toy warehouse was destroyed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I'm pretty sure, let's see, we're going back to, that's about a 30-year jump, right? So you experience it one time, you're small, right? You know, you have your small shop. And then, I mean, based off of what I'm reading, you know, the year 1960, your warehouse. So now you're jumping, you know, from production, you're bigger and everything. Yeah. And I would think, you know, at that point, it's kind of looking back and saying, I know where I started from, and I've already kind of experienced this, and I know that it does get better. So I think that probably had a lot to do with the success that the company has now, is having that same push of basically these unfortunate events.
Which was a good book series, by the way.
A series of unfortunate events. Now, a lot of, for me, what I did is I went straight to the Lego website. They have their full detailed timeline on there. So, we're definitely going to be jumping around, just kind of, you know, skimming through, highlighting some of the bigger things. But I would actually recommend it. Like, their website is very interactive. It's colorful. It's nice. And then they have this really detailed timeline that talks all about it. And so it's really great. Again, you can obviously tell that I definitely enjoy this company or this toy, you know, because of the story that it has and everything. And again, it has had some great success. Let's see. I am going to fast forward, and if you have anything before this date, I just thought it was very interesting in their timeline. 1996 is when their www.lego.com was launched. So I think that's really cool, just to kind of give you that perspective of, like, how technology had been advancing. Obviously, I guess I'm gonna be giving my age away, but it was not a huge deal. It's a year after I was born, and then I don't know. I feel like sometimes we look at these companies and their history and all of that, where we don't really pay attention to it, and then you just kind of assume, like, in your now, that things existed, like, for forever.
Yeah.
So I don't know why, like, that popped out to me, because, you know, their website was launched, and so you just assume, like, what? You know, that was this. You know, it's been around for so long, but, you know, it's like things progress as technology progresses and all of that, so.
Yeah. Well, I did want to bring up, you know, how we were talking about how they're, like, the materials weren't available for him to make his toys and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when those all the alternatives that he was looking for, one of those was plastic injection molding, which is where you actually get the form of the Lego, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't able to use that machine. So he had bought the machine in order to use it, but it was actually legal for him to use it for a year.
Why is
so
that?
He couldn't, use that machine and sell his toys.
Oh.
So he could make it, practice with it. And so he actually owned the first machine, like a plastic injection machine,
Mm-hmm.
in the history of Denmark. Is that right? The first? Yeah, Denmark. I know Danish, but it wasn't clicking that Denmark and Danish were the same part.
No, I had that in the back of my mind, but I didn't know if to bring it up or not. I'm glad you mentioned that. Just I took a course in college that was what is it called? Non-metallics course, and we had a lab where we actually used one of those injection machines.
Really?
Yeah. And so it was really cool because it basically has the molding, and so it's basically these two metal cases. And so what it does is it basically clamps together, and then there's like this shooter, and this is all very like simplified because, yeah. So there's this shooter, and it pours in or shoots in the plastic or whatever material it is you're putting, and so then afterwards it'll come apart, and then we had this little logo. It had a A&M logo on there, and it was just made out of plastic. But it was really cool to watch, how the whole system kind of, through the pressure and the heat and all of that, and how it just kind of, takes the mold of it. Yeah. So that's why whenever I read that on the timeline, I thought it was really interesting how I kind of pictured, the molding of the brick logo, or, the Lego.
And, it was crazy because that mold, they actually didn't own it. They had to borrow it from somebody, like this different company, and they asked them, like, hey, can we use this? And it wasn't until, a while longer. I can't find a date right now. But until a while longer, they'd actually, legally bought that, what's the word for it?
Like a copyright of it? Or the
patent?
There
you go.
Or...
Yes, patent for the mold.
Okay.
So it wasn't even theirs originally, which is insane.
No, and it's actually interesting, and maybe I'm making this up, but even within their timeline, you can even tell whenever it talks about, when it just mentions Lego, like the Lego brick, and then at some point in the timeline, it shows Lego with, the R on the side of it. I mean, I don't know if that has to, but I guess on some point it signifies, hey, this was, theirs, they owned it, or I could just be completely wrong, but I'm going to tell myself that that's what it was. Now, again, I was jumping into technology and all of that, but, so in 2011, and this is not the first one, but just within the States, so the Legoland, which I did not know Legoland existed. So we talk about Disney World and Disneyland and all these places, like these, what is it called? Six Flags. But Lego actually has a Legoland in Florida, and I think they might have opened one in California, but the one I looked into was in Florida. This 2011, it's the world's largest Legoland park. And so when we had decided that this is what we were going to be talking about, I had done some research on it, and this was before, flights and all of that were not, are restricted. But I had honestly looked at doing a weekend trip to Florida to test this out and just be able to
look at it.
Yeah. So unfortunately I wasn't able to before this recording, but I have it on my list. I am so going back to Florida. I'm gonna spend the day in Legoland, and this is really exciting. So I think this is really cool because again, if you're listening and you've ever walked into one of their stores, then you can kind of either relate or just understand where I'm coming from. Why I would be so excited that there is a Legoland that's just massive.
Yeah. I mean, it's so crazy, the things you can actually build with, so it's, such tiny building blocks, it's insane.
Mm-hmm.
They have, these crazy, boxes full of 1,000 pieces just that you can build, some Star Wars aircraft that I honestly have no idea what I'm talking about. But it's crazy, what you can do with something so small.
Right. And honestly, I think the best part, or one of the greatest things about this as well, is that they've actually adapted or evolved with, again, I'm going back to technology, with technology and just with, they've incorporated not just like a, oh, this is enjoyable, this is fun. They've created it in a way where it's educational, and how they partnered with, like, things where it's like almost like robotics, and how you can program them, and just how they've changed and revolutionized how you play with toys and how it is fun, but going beyond that, and making it educational and making it interactive, and just something great.
What was your, like, go-to thing you built with Legos?
I'm not sure why, but I liked to, I was more of a freestyle person. I wasn't a fan of the sets. I didn't like the sets. Like, I didn't want to know what I was going to be creating. I just kind of liked the one where it gives you all the colors, different types, and I just like to, put my grass down and just kind of build from there, and whatever came in the box. I know that my little brother was into Minecraft, so we would get him, these sets, which is really cool because, you're building one, and then they kind of sort of connect because they all have the same characters, or, the whole setup. So he liked those. He enjoyed them, and he would build them very quickly. For me, I didn't want that end goal. I didn't want to really, like, do it for, like, the sense of accomplishing. I wanted it more of like, hey, this is kind of fun, just connecting these pieces and color combos and stuff like that. What about you?
I was just built up like a building. But I always got like 2 like levels up, and I was like, I'm done. This is it. I'm bored. So I don't think I've ever finished a full like Lego building.
No.
It's kind of disappointing. No. But I want to get, like, they have like those kits where you can build like this castle or whatever. Like the very intricate ones where you build like the Harry Potter castle or whatever. I kind of want to get one of those, but then I don't, because I know I won't ever finish it, and so it'd be a waste of money.
Right. Well, and the thing is, like, they do take up some space, so if you're going to build them and display them, that's awesome. But if it takes you like a whole year to do it, then you kind of have like a half done. So it's not fully, like, for display yet, because it's not a finished product.
Yeah.
I think the sets were a big no for me, because my older brother did, I think he did, like, an aircraft one time. And just watching him read the instructions, and I mean, he had the patience for it. But to me, it's just like, this is taking way too long for me to piece by piece.
I think that's what it is. I don't have the patience for it. I'd be like, you know what? It's okay.
But you know what the weird thing is? Like, when it comes to Legos and doing that, like, again, the instructions and stuff, I was not for it. But whenever we buy furniture that you have to, like, put together, I love it. Like, I love getting the screws and the little washers and all of that, and then reading the instructions, and I'm reading it to David, and I'm telling him, hey, look, okay, step 1 is this, and he looks at the picture, and then just kind of going through the steps. So it's a little ironic, but then again, the last time I did play with a Lego set was a long time ago. So
I don't remember, because, like, my mom kind of got rid of all her toys once we grew up, but she was like, okay, you don't play with this, that's it, they're gone. And so I have no idea where it went, but I remember, like, my brother got a set and I got a set one year for Christmas, and it was like the best thing ever. So, like, all our toys are mixed together, but I have this thing where I like things to be separated to where they are. I'm very
OCD.
Particular. Well, I don't want to say OCD, but yes, very particular about certain things. And that was one of them. So I would get so mad if I ever found one of his and mine. I'd be like, this isn't mine. Get out of here. So, I don't think Legos was my toy that I could play with.
And kind of speaking of, well, we're still speaking of the Lego. We talked about the Lego movie. I don't know if you saw the Lego movie. In 2014, the first one.
Yeah.
Okay, so I saw it too. I saw the Lego movie. It was the first time the Lego universe had been pictured in a movie. So 2014, And I think there's been, I didn't follow. I think there was another one that came out or something like that.
Yeah, I think they came out with like a second one.
Okay. And 2018, so it was 2 years ago, marked the anniversary of the Lego brick. It was their 60th anniversary. So yay for them. And then at the very end of their timeline, one of the things that I loved how they put it was basically from a small carpenter's workshop to a modern global enterprise that is now one of the world's largest manufacturers of toys. So I think this is a great way to kind of sum up, again, who they are, kind of their very humble beginnings and where they are now and just kind of how they've evolved. So again, it's a very touching story, and if you haven't walked into one of the stores, make sure you do. And one last fun fact is I read that the plural of Lego is Lego. Even though a lot of people say Legos, it's actually Lego. So
it's just Lego no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm probably still going to call it Legos.
Probably. Same here. But I did find it interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Next topic.
Speaking of interesting, we're going to be talking about mythology.
And now we brought this up on a previous episode, and
our last episode.
We for sure know I'm not very what is it? I don't know very much about the mythology world.
I guess
just
this is like
in that book.
Right. So this may be flipped of how I felt with astrology and how I was like so did not know.
It didn't really catch your attention. I mean, this is interesting, and I would love to learn like more stories about each I don't want to say character, but each main Olympian and like how they interacted throughout, everybody else's stories.
Right.
But
it's a lot. Yeah, it is a lot. So I was telling Caroline this before we started recording that I almost got overwhelmed because there was so much that I wanted to put on here that I just like I almost wanted to go beyond the crash course and just like sit down and give every single detail. But then you would be listening for hours, and actually probably you wouldn't even make it past this point. You'd probably just be like, all right, I'm so done.
I'm good.
Yeah. So it's disclaimer. I mean, we are going to give superficially just kind of introduce you to if you've kind of heard or just kind of crossed your fingers and flew by English course or English class when you were taking, this part of it. But it's very interesting, honestly. Like it's a world of its own, really. I think I am very interested in it. I think it's great. I think it's really cool just to look into and just to be familiarized with the stories, honestly.
Yeah.
So again, I'm kind of going to be talking about more about Greek mythology because it is more the popular one, but I will bring up Roman mythology. But again, as a disclaimer, guys, there's tons of different types of mythology. Like, it's not just Greek mythology and Roman mythology. There is,
Those are just...
Yeah, those are just two that in my world are the most popular ones. But,
yeah,
I mean, if you're super into this, you may be thinking, no, there's more, which we are aware, but we're going to be focusing on Greek and Roman. So, did you find out what it is?
What mythology is?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it just like their gods that just begin like as an oral tradition for them to kind of have the basis of their own like morality, I guess,
and belief. So it's basically a set of stories about the god and goddesses, like you said, about the ancient Greeks. And again, the what is it called? Greek mythology came before Roman mythology, and so Roman mythology kind of bounced off of it, or kind of took some of those stories.
Is that kind of why there is a Roman equal to each Greek god?
Yes.
Because they came first. Oh, okay. I thought it was just like it just so happened that there are
same
people.
No, and so I guess we can jump to that part. So the Roman mythology almost disregards the moral deeds that the Greek mythology will like, I guess, enhance or will kind of praise. Like usually whenever you're told the story or you read it, there's always like that, like a moral to it, right? You're supposed to learn something from it. So Roman mythology almost kind of takes that away. They don't really they don't focus on that. And it's said that Roman gods don't actually like have a personality. Like it almost allows you to imply it for yourself, as opposed to like Greek mythology, how they kind of and like not promote but almost describe the god or goddess as a if they were beautiful or if they were ugly, and just kind of who they are. They kind of give them a persona. But Roman mythology really doesn't.
For the Romans, it was not so much of a physicality aspect to it. It was just like, hey, this is them.
Exactly.
Okay. Yep.
It was more like about war and battles and fights and stuff like that. Okay. And Greek mythology, I mean, they had that, but it wasn't, so much on that.
And so, like, the stories they had for, like, Greek mythology was kind of like, hey, little kids, don't be this kind of person, because then this is going to happen to you. It's kind of like how our parents are like, careful if you're bad, like, the boogeyman's going to get you, or whatever.
Right.
Is that not as scary?
Well, and again, this kind of also will explain why, if we, like, I have an example of one of them, because, again, there's tons of them. But you're going to read different versions of it because, again, it's a story that's kind of passed on and told. And so there may be small details, or there may be things that are going to be different between what you read on maybe one website, when you read on one book. So they'll change, but most of them will kind of have the same basis or the same, I guess, moral to it.
Yeah, okay.
It's just the details that change. So I did want to, I guess, give 12 of the most popular god or goddesses. Again, this is not like like a list, like this is it. There's a lot of them.
Just a quick crash course.
Exactly. So the first one is obviously Zeus. So he's considered to be king of the gods. Then you have Hera, which is the goddess of love and the heavens. You have Poseidon, which is god of the sea, which, if you ask me, and this is very biased, but because of the books that I read that I mentioned on the last episode about Percy Jackson and the Olympians, Poseidon tends to be one of my favorite.
Me too. And it's only because of those books.
Exactly. So, and then we have Demeter, which is a goddess of bountiful harvest and the nurturing spirit. You have, I should have checked how to pronounce this, but it's Ares. So
Ares?
Yeah, we'll call him that. He's god of the war, or god of war. Sure. Then you have Hermes, which is god of the roads. Hephaestus, which is god of fire. Aphrodite, which is goddess of love and beauty, which I think people tend to hear more about her. And then also Athena, which is goddess of wisdom. You have Apollo, god of music. This one also. I keep saying
Artemis?
art. Yes, there's an A before there. Okay, he's the goddess, or she's a goddess of hunting, and then Hestia, which is a goddess of home and hearth. So those are the most popular. Again, you have titans, you have creatures, and you have mortals. So I'm telling you guys, there's like so much to it. But again, each one has a story. Their stories intertwine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you brought up Titans, and this was kind of the one point I definitely wanted to kind of, I guess, research for myself, was like how they came about. Because, you have the story of Zeus overcoming the Titans and stuff. So I kind of want to figure out how that started. And so they have, I want to say Gaia. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. But she was the first goddess, so she was also known as Mother Earth.
Yes.
And so she gave birth. It was a weird story of who the father is, but to the second generation, which is the Titans. And the Titans were then kind of the parents of Zeus, Poseidon, and was it Hades? And then they overcame them. So I had no idea like how they came about. Because, you always hear it was like, oh, they overcame the Titans. And it's like, okay, well, where did the Titans come from?
Yeah.
But
from the mother.
Yes, I'm from Earth.
And so I guess I just kind of randomly picked one. This is just it's a quick story. And we'll make sure to be posting our sources on there as well. So I'm going to be reading this one right off of it. I got this from it was a website, and again, I'll be putting the link below so you can fact check me. So this is a story of Prometheus. Some of you guys might have heard it because it is one of the more popular ones. But if you haven't, well, at least you get one. So Prometheus was one of the original Titans, which you just kind of mentioned, which is actually really good, that you kind of gave that backstory. He was one of the original Titans who was overthrown by Zeus and the other Olympians. But he was one of the few to survive from being banished to Tartarus, or I don't know how you pronounce that. So again, because the Titans got overthrown, that's kind of where they were banished. Prometheus would constantly come into conflict with Zeus, and after Zeus withdrew the use of fire by mortals, Prometheus famously stole the fire and gave it back to humanity. And so, as punishment for his transgressions, he was chained to a rock in the... Oh, I don't even know how to pronounce this either. This is the thing about Greek mythology. You just kind of make stuff up. Caucasus Mountains for eternity. So every day, an eagle, which is the symbol of Zeus, would fly to the rock and eat the liver of Prometheus. Since he was immortal, his liver would regenerate, only for the cycle to repeat the next day. Now, eventually, Hercules freed Prometheus from his prison. But this, I remember, I think I want to say I was in 7th grade. This was the first time I had heard the story of Prometheus, and that grossed me out. Like, it was, to me, the imagery of it was super gross, and then also super painful for you to have to repeat that same kind of pain over and over, but you already know that that's what you're going to feel again, Yeah,
I mean, it kind of just makes Zeus look bad. Because, he was just trying to help people out.
Yeah.
Prometheus, and then he was, banished and tortured for a long time. Right.
And again, a lot of stories intertwine, so this is kind of just like me pulling the story from between of a before and after. So, again, because like I said, I didn't even tell you how Hercules freed him, but, spoiler alert, he was freed from his prison. But yeah.
Well, there was actually one story that I saw, and that's about Persephone.
Okay.
She was, hold on, I have to find it. I just lost it. Oh, she's kind of like the reason why seasons came about.
Oh.
So, what happened was, so Persephone was stolen by Hades to be his queen in the underworld.
Mm-hmm.
And her mother, the earth goddess, was so sad that she was gone. She refused to fulfill her duties. So everything was kind of like cold and dreary, so like the winter months. And so they kind of came to this sort of, what's the word?
Agreement?
Agreement between her and Hades that Persephone would be with her mom she would be with her mom for 4 to 6 months. And then the rest of the year she would be in the underworld. So for those 4 to 6 months, that's kind of like our summer and spring.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she's in the underworld, that's our fall and winter time. So that's kind of how, we resulted in the seasons and how those came about. Oh. According to Greek mythology.
That's cool. And again, there's so many more stories that we could share. But we're going to go ahead and move on to our next topic, which is phobias. Now, again, just like Greek mythology, there's so much we could tell you about phobias, but we're really just we handpicked a few of them. I picked some of the ones that I found were very interesting that existed. And then just a few facts here and there. So, I don't know if you want to...
Well, there's one that kind of weirded me out, personally.
Mm-hmm.
It's turophobia, which is the fear of cheese.
Huh.
Like, you're scared of cheese. Which, there's, like, lactose intolerance, but there's no reason to be scared of cheese.
Right.
I mean, you're just gonna have some problems. And, like, literally every lactose intolerant person I know is like, give me more cheese. I will risk it for whatever it has to happen.
It's people who understand that their love for cheese is,
has no bounds.
Right. Yep. And, for those of you who don't know, a phobia is an excessive and irrational fear reaction. It's unlike anxiety disorders because phobias are connected to something like specific. I did read in a 2017 post that 19 million Americans have a phobia that causes difficulty in some area of their lives. So that's a lot of Americans who have some type of phobia. Again, there's so many. One of the ones that I thought was interesting is called globophobia, which is a fear of balloons popping. Now, I don't think I have this phobia, but I definitely get absolutely scared when a balloon pops. But I think mine is more out of the like sudden the sudden pop or the noise.
Yeah.
I don't. It's not a phobia, but I mean, I can see it. This one, I can't blame people for it. Yeah, I mean, if you're terrified of it, I do. I mean, I do know some people who are actually fearful of the sound of, like.
Yeah, like the sound it makes. Yeah, which is kind of like odd, but I get it because it is a weird sound. And so, but I mean, but there's actually one famous person that has globophobia is Oprah Winfrey.
What?
Yeah, like she can't go near balloons because she's scared that they'll pop.
Oh wow! I wonder how she did it at birthday parties. Guess a balloon-free party. But then again, I mean, if you're Oprah Winfrey, do you really have balloons at your party?
Probably not.
Probably not.
You got something fancier. But you got something in common with Oprah Winfrey. So there you go.
Another one is ombrophobia, which is the fear of rain. Now, let me tell you, if you have ombrophobia, I am so sorry. Because I don't know how you can avoid that. I really don't. That's tough.
I mean, just stay at home, I guess. But, like,
but even still, I mean,
you're going to hear it and you're going to see it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I love the rain. I love it when it rains.
Yep.
Those are the best naps I ever take. It's
relaxing for sure, and it's always hard to get out of bed, especially when it's been raining all night.
I mean, there's another phobia that I absolutely don't understand, and it's bibliophobia. The fear of books.
Oh, man. Maybe for a bad... I mean, I did read that sometimes it may run... It could be, like... It could run in the family in the sense of, like, if you're... As a child, if you're around somebody who does suffer from, like, an anxiety disorder. But... Yeah. And it has to do with your environment as well, so...
Yeah. Yeah, I heard that most of these phobias come from, like, a traumatic event that happened in your life, so... Once you see that person or that thing happen or coming your way again, you react to that same way that you were when that first traumatic event happened. Mm-hmm. So that phobia just constantly keeps happening. It's a constant cycle.
You know, I watched the Maury show a couple of years ago, and it was based off of phobias, and I remember distinctly because again I was much younger, and so this woman was terrified of cotton balls. And you know, they had a specialist come in because they were going to try to help her overcome this fear of cotton balls. That they brought in a man that was dressed as a big cotton ball. And they were basically forcing her to hug him to get over her fear because she couldn't touch it. Like, I don't know. After that point, I was like, man, this is intense.
Yeah, I mean, well, I also read that the best way to overcome such phobias is just to be exposed to it. Just pretty much exposure therapy. So, like what they were doing on Maury. Which honestly was the best show to watch when you were homesick during school time.
That's so funny. Yep. Now, this next one, I mean, I know we don't pronounce things very well sometimes, but this one's going to be a complete slaughter, and I'm going to try because it's fun. It's called hippopotamonstrosesquipedaliphobia, which, ironic enough, is a fear of long words. So the first thing that crossed my mind when I read this was, if you truly have a fear of long words, how could you possibly tell somebody that that's exactly what your phobia is?
I mean, maybe it's that person was like, okay, this is what I'm going to name it. So every time you tell somebody they have this phobia, they have to, I guess, face it head on by literally being, look, your phobia is this big old long thing. Or they were just trying to be really evil and were like, look.
That's interesting because I tend to be pretty positive, but that did not cross my mind. That's a great way of looking at it. Another one that I thought was pretty interesting was ergophobia, which is a fear of work. Now, a lot of people may not actually have this phobia, but some people really do make it seem like they do. They are fearful of work.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
I mean, I'm not fearful. I just sometimes don't want to go.
Oh man. And then I looked this up for 2020, the most recent, the number one phobia in America is arachnophobia, which is a fear of spiders.
That's the number one?
Well, that's what I read. It's the number one. I mean, I read a 2014 post where the number one was actually what is it called? Stage fright. Like there's like a fear of speaking in front of people or whatever.
I get that, yeah.
But then I looked 2020 and that's the one that popped up. It was a 30.5%. So, I mean, I guess Americans are afraid of their spiders, which, to be honest, again, depending on the size of it, I mean, I can kill one. I can kill a spider. I mean, if once you get, again, to a certain size, no way. But what I cannot see or be in the same room is a roach. And I'm convinced that is a phobia for me because my dad used to make fun of me of how terrified I would get. He was a Hispanic father, so for sure there was no mercy there. I got bullied. There was no compassion for me. They would just tell me to kill it. If I'm terrified and afraid, why would I want to go kill it myself?
I mean,
nope.
That exposure therapy.
I know.
And
you said when you said that I was like, yeah, but no, not for roaches. Now I think I have it more under control where I'm not like I can control, I guess, the level of my running away.
Yeah.
But I still won't kill it. And my mom, it's so funny because my mom asks me sometimes, she's like, well, what are you going to do whenever your husband's not home and it's just you and your kids and you find one? I tell her, well, I guess me and my child are going out and about. So.
See you later. Let me know when you're gone, Roach. I'll be back.
Yep.
Yeah, no, when you brought up that spider thing, I don't know if my boss might have it because he called me. He was like, hey, can you kill this spider for me? I can't do it. I was like, are you sure? And he's like a grown man. I was like, all right. So he had me go and like kill the spider for him. And he was like, thank you so much. I was like, you're welcome. But like, my sister actually said that they had a spider at her job. Mm-hmm. So somebody killed it. But apparently that spider had like a whole bunch of babies. And so when they killed it, all the spider babies came out.
Ew.
Yeah, so now I'm like, you know what? That spider's fine. He'll live his life. I don't need it.
Oh my goodness. No. That's not a cool visual.
So if anybody listening had that fear or that phobia, that story probably didn't help at all.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to warn my little brother because he kind of falls into that category.
Oh, sorry.
Yep. But I mean, those are phobias, you know.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has something.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. So, that's a great point. What's your phobia? Or maybe not your phobia, because maybe it's not to that degree. But share with us, like, what is your biggest fear? Like, what are you afraid of? You know, is it speaking in front of people? Is it, roaches? Is it spiders? Is it snakes? Like, let us know, because, we're interested.
So, yeah, I have two main phobias. And so, the first one is calorophobia, which is a fear of clowns.
Ah, you fall into that category, huh?
Yeah. Like, if I see a clown anywhere, I kind of just, like, turn my back and walk the other way. Like, the opposite way. So, I'm like, I'm not going anywhere near that clown. I want to walk away. I don't want to...
Even if it's like a happy clown?
Anything. Yeah, anything.
Okay. What's the other one?
It's kind of, I don't know. Oh. I have no idea where that fear even came from. Because, like, remember how we grew up at church? We used to have clowns there all the time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. That's how I was like...
Something clicked. And it was like, nope.
I mean, to be honest with you, like, no offense to you people who are clowns running around. Just kidding. It's not I don't find it very appealing. Like,
clowns?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I'm afraid of them. It's just the whole costume of it is not very appealing to me.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Like, I know. But, like, what I read was that they think that phobia has been increasing so much because of television.
Oh,
and
yep.
putting it in, like, so, like, scary circumstances that's all what people associate it with.
Yep.
So, like, the people who have that phobia is increasing as the years go on.
I believe it.
Clowns are getting a bad rap. I'm so sorry, but...
You don't want to be a clown for a living.
No.
What's the other one?
Phobia is ornithophobia, which is the fear of birds. And I know exactly where this stemmed from.
Oh, that's right. You are afraid of birds.
I'm terrified. So, like, if I hear, like, the flapping of wings, if I see a bird out of the corner of my eye, I duck, and I'm like, nope, that's it. I'm not moving anywhere. This is it. And, like, I hide. Like, I can't do it. And so, this actually came from when I was, like, I don't know how old I was, but I was so much younger.
Mm-hmm.
And so my parents had left me, my brother, and my sister here. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to go outside and jump on a trampoline.
Okay.
So our trampoline was, like, under this tree. And so it was, like, one of those really long rectangular ones. And there was a hole in the middle of the trampoline. And so you could either jump, like, around the part that was under the tree or the part that was in the sun. Mm-hmm. But I was like, I don't want to get too burned today. Let me go closer to the part that's towards the tree. Mm-hmm. But what I didn't know was that there was a bird's nest there. And these eggs had just recently hatched. And so there was baby birds in there. Mm-hmm. And so me, as a small little child, was happily jumping on this trampoline, not knowing that the mama bird saw me as a threat. Mm-hmm. And so she swooped down, attacked me, was pecking me in the head or whatever. And then my sister and my brother were just laughing and watching me from the backyard door, not doing anything to help me.
Oh, and know, like a typical older sibling.
Yeah. I mean, but now they have to deal with it, because every time the bird comes by, I'm like, this is because of you, this is all your fault.
Yeah, you didn't intercept. So how did it just, like, stop attacking you, or did you have to run away?
I don't remember anything other than just, like, screaming. I'm pretty sure I, like, ran towards the door. And, like, kind of ran away, but, yeah.
Did it hurt? Like, was it hard pecks?
I don't think it actually, like, got me, but it was, like, swooping down and coming at me.
Okay, sure. Okay. No, yeah. I can definitely see that traumatizing, or, you know, being a traumatic event.
That one definitely has a sure source, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you have any phobias?
No, not necessarily. Just the whole roach thing. I have a ton of those that, again, people laugh at me about, but, it's, I don't know what it is. Like, it's not, I don't do it on purpose, but they're just so gross and I don't know. Like, you have no idea how grateful I am that we have the little, like, pest control thingy, like, within our house, because I have not seen one, and I'm, knock on wood, like, I have not seen one since I moved in, and I am just, the Lord knows, man, He knows, I can't stand them, so I have not seen one, and it just gives me a peace. I live in peace. I can tell you this now, Caroline, I live in peace, in my home, because, again, other places, it's so hard to control myself.
Yeah, I think I'm okay. Like, I mean, I won't personally go try and kill it, but as long as it doesn't fly.
Oh, those are okay, that makes it even worse. Like, yeah, and especially...
You finally get the courage up to try to kill it, and then it flies straight at your face.
Let me just tell you, there's so many stories of when I was in college, in my apartment, there was no one home, and I just had to... I've wasted so much time staring at a roach, making sure it doesn't move until somebody comes home. That's what I'm telling you. Whenever my mom asks me about, what are you going to do with your child? Well, I don't know. I think my child and I are going to leave until somebody appropriate or of not scared of roaches can come and deal with the problem.
Maybe when your child's older, you can train them to kill them for you. And that way you don't have to deal with it.
As long as they're not so curious enough to just grab it with their hand and then, like, bring it to me. You know what I mean?
Look, Mom.
Well, because my older brother used to stick grasshoppers in his pocket. And so, yeah, one time my mom told me that he came home and they just, like, all popped out of his pockets. So I wouldn't even know what I would do in that. And I'd probably freak out and be terrified. But yeah, he used to stick grasshoppers in his pockets. How he grabbed them, I don't know, because that takes skill, I think. But then again, I've never tried to actually grab one myself, so.
True.
Alrighty, well, this kind of concludes our episode for today. Talked about Lego, something fun. Talked about mythology, something interesting, and then we talked about phobias, something scary. So
yeah, I think we covered, the great points of your childhood, your fears, and then some extra things that might explain some things about life a little bit.
Well, that's us in a not in a nutshell, but a portion of it.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, we will see you guys on our next episode. Stay tuned. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Make sure
Tell us your phobias.
Exactly. Make sure you subscribe and you put. Apparently, YouTube has a little bell on there. Whatever that means. I've heard a lot of YouTubers do it. Just do that. Follow instructions.
Subscribe and hit that notification bell.
Yeah, there you go. What Caroline said.
I watched YouTube.
Well, we're just going to have to, like, get trained.
Yeah.
So do all those good stuff. And make sure you go follow us on Instagram. And yay! That's one way to end it, right?
That's one way. Bye!
Bye!